chew. You ever sneeze while you're driving? Scared the heck out of me the other day.
Oh, yeah.
It got me thinking about all that stuff we do without even thinking, behind the wheel. All those split-second decisions. Imagine letting a computer make those calls.
Mm.
So that brings us to self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Awesome technology. But how do you teach program something to handle like all the crazy stuff, like life or death situations?
Well, that's where this thought experiment comes in. It's a classic, the trolley problem.
Okay.
It's all about ethics.
Right.
It was first posed by this philosopher, Philip Foot. So picture this, a runaway trolley.
Right.
5 people are stuck on the tracks, and you've got this lever.
Yeah?
You can switch the trolley to a side track.
Okay.
But there's one person on that track.
Oh, so it's like, do you save the 5
Exactly.
but doom the 1?
You sacrifice 1 to save 5.
Man, real ethical dilemma there.
Yeah.
Most people would probably say they'd pull the lever.
Yeah.
It seems like the logical thing to do.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of plays into this idea called utilitarianism. Yeah. Maximizing overall well-being, the best for the most people.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
But there's a big difference between saying you do something and, actually doing it when the pressure's on.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's what makes the research we're diving into today so interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Someone actually tried to bring the trolley problem to life. We're talking real people making these impossible choices, like in the moment.
Wow.
So we know someone tried to make this happen. Who was this ambitious person?
This guy, Michael.
Michael.
And his goal was to see how people would really react, not just what they'd say they'd do, in some made-up situation.
Right. Get down to, the nitty-gritty.
Exactly.
That's pretty ambitious, but also sounds like, ethically kind of a tightrope walk.
You're telling me you can't just throw people into some, fake life or death thing and not think about the consequences.
Right. What about the psychological impact?
Exactly. That's why they had to be really careful. Michael's team, I mean.
Yeah.
They talked to a whole bunch of experts in research ethics, tons of consultations.
Okay, so they were being super careful. Sounds like they had all the safety bases covered.
Right.
But how did they actually stage this trolley problem? Make it feel real without, anyone actually getting hurt?
They were crazy meticulous. First, they had a psychologist screen every potential participant.
Oh, wow.
Make sure they could handle the stress of it all.
Makes sense.
Then they had a trauma counselor.
Oh, jeez.
Right there on site. During the experiment, I mean. Ready to jump in if anything went wrong.
Wow, they really thought of everything.
Plus, afterward, they had this whole debriefing process.
Okay.
Really thorough. To help the participants process everything.
Makes sense. So they had the ethical side covered. But how did they actually make it feel real?
Okay, so picture this.
Yeah.
An abandoned rail line.
Okay.
A real freight train.
Oh.
Actors playing like railway workers.
Wow, so they went all out.
They filmed everything in advance, then they edited it to make it look like live security footage.
Oh, that's clever. So it was like a carefully constructed illusion.
Exactly. And to make it even more real, they even came up with this fake organization.
Oh, no way. What, like a fake train company?
Yeah. The California Railroad Authority.
No way. That's brilliant.
So the participants totally believed they were in a real switching station,
Right.
monitoring a real live situation.
Oh, man, that's intense.
Right. So they bring the participant into this remote switching station, and they meet this, totally convincing train switch operator. This guy shows them the ropes, how to switch the train from one track to another using the lever.
So like a crash course in being a train conductor, but with way higher stakes.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, at some point, the operator gets called away, right? Leaves the participant all alone in the station.
Oh, I bet that's when the tension really starts to build.
Oh, yeah. It's like all of a sudden, everything gets real. On the monitors, they see a group of workers just kind of wandering onto the track.
Like they don't even know.
Right. It's all part of the setup. 5 workers on one track, 1 worker on the other.
Uh-oh. This is where it gets real.
And then, bam, a train appears,
Yeah.
heading straight for the workers. Alarms start blaring, the train's getting closer and closer, and it's all on the participant, right?
Yeah.
Do they switch the lever, save 5 lives, but sacrifice 1?
Right.
Or do nothing and potentially watch 5 people get hit by a train?
But I'm getting stressed just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear about the first participant, Elsa. What was her experience like?
So they bring Elsa into the switching station,
Okay.
give her the rundown on the lever.
Yeah.
She's totally buying into the whole thing.
Right.
Believes it's a real station.
Right.
Real workers, real threat.
Yeah, yeah.
So the operator leaves.
Okay.
The staged footage starts rolling. At first, there's confusion. She hears the alarms, sees the workers on the tracks, and she's trying to figure out what's going on.
Makes sense.
She even starts looking for her phone, like to call for help. But remember...
Oh, yeah. They took her phone away.
Exactly. Part of the setup.
Right, right.
So she's completely isolated,
All alone.
facing this impossible choice.
Oh, man. So what happens next?
As the train gets closer, the warnings get louder, more urgent.
Right.
And you can see it on her face.
Oh, really?
The anxiety just building and building. It's a real struggle. You can see it.
I bet it felt incredibly real in that moment.
Oh, absolutely. And then she
Yeah.
makes her decision.
Wow.
She grabs the lever and switches the tracks.
She switched it.
Yeah.
So she chose to sacrifice one life to save the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow. Did they tell her right away that it was all staged?
Not right away. No, they let it play out for a little bit longer.
Oh, man.
Then they stopped it before the train actually hit anyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
A message flashed on the screen. End of test. Everyone is safe.
Oh, what a relief that must have been.
Right.
What was going through her mind when they told her it was all fake?
She was definitely shaken up.
Yeah.
But she seemed to be handling it pretty well. When they asked her why she did it,
Yeah.
she said she just had to do something,
Right.
Like, she was responsible for those workers' lives.
Wow.
That it was a terrible choice, but she had to save more lives.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It was the right thing to do, she thought.
Classic trolley problem response.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I'm guessing not everyone reacted the same way, though, right?
Yeah, right about the... Actually, most of the participants didn't pull the lever at all.
Really? That's kind of surprising. You'd think saving 5 lives, would be like the gut reaction.
Well, it seems logical, right? But you got to remember,
Yeah.
this is a high-stress,
Oh, yeah.
emotionally intense situation.
For sure.
Our brains don't always do what we think they're going to do
Right, right.
under pressure like that.
Makes sense. So, was there someone who didn't pull the lever?
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about JR,
Yeah.
another participant.
Okay.
He saw the whole thing play out, the
Wow.
train coming,
Yeah.
heard the alarms,
Uh-huh.
but he just froze.
Rose.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything.
Nothing.
Wow.
Later, he said that he just felt overwhelmed, didn't want to make things worse by messing with it.
I see.
He also said that he thought the workers would see the train
Oh.
and get out of the way,
Right.
or that the train had sensors,
Interesting.
to prevent a crash.
It sounds like he was trying to convince himself it wasn't really happening.
Well, that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
When we get stressed, we try to rationalize things, come up with reasons why it's not so bad,
Right.
or why it's someone else's problem.
It's like a defense mechanism or something.
Exactly.
So JR's the freeze response, right?
Yeah.
Were there other people who kind of reacted the same way?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Several others just sat there, frozen by indecision,
Wow.
as the train got closer and closer.
Makes you wonder if there's a point where our brains just shut down, like to protect us from too much, emotional overload.
Could be, yeah.
So we've got the switchers like Elsa and the freezers like JR. Any other types of reactions?
There was this one guy, Corey.
Corey.
He was interesting.
Okay.
At first, he froze too,
Yeah.
overwhelmed, just like JR.
Makes sense.
But then he snapped out of it,
Oh, wow.
started frantically trying to fix things.
Like what? Trying to stop the train himself?
He was looking for the operator,
Okay.
trying to call someone, anything to avoid making that decision himself.
Wow.
He was even talking out loud,
Really?
saying stuff like, they got to know the train's coming,
Oh.
and someone else must be handling this.
It's like he was looking for any way out.
Oh, he was desperate.
You could see it in his face. Yeah. The terror, the struggle.
Wow.
Unlike JR, who just kind of accepted it.
Yeah.
Corey was trying to find a solution. Any solution.
Right.
That didn't involve pulling that lever.
So he wasn't a switcher. He wasn't a freezer.
Right.
He was more like a problem solver?
Exactly.
Okay.
Caught between those two extremes.
Yeah.
Can't do nothing,
Right.
but also can't make that awful choice.
That's like a third option.
Right.
So after all these experiments, what were the overall results? Did more people switch or freeze?
Most of them didn't switch the tracks.
Really?
Elsa was the only one who actually chose to sacrifice one to save 5.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Isn't it?
We'd like to think we'd all be rational,
Mm-hmm.
make the right choice,
Right.
but it seems like we're way more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's like we have this image of ourselves,
Right.
like how we think we'd react.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're actually facing the consequences,
Our instincts take over.
makes you think, is it wrong to like freeze up? Like those people who couldn't pull the lever? Should we be like judging them for that?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's something the researchers thought about a lot.
All right.
During those debriefing sessions, they really made a point of saying that freezing is natural.
Okay.
It's a response to a threat,
Right.
like a deep down survival thing.
Mm-hmm.
You see it in animals too.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
It's like our brains hit the pause button
Whoa.
when things get too overwhelming.
So it's not like a conscious
Yeah.
choice or a moral failing.
Exactly.
It's just our wiring.
It's primal.
Wow.
In fact, sometimes it might be the safest thing to do,
That's a good point.
you know?
Yeah. So bringing this back to our self-driving car thing,
Okay.
how does this research, like, change how we think about programming them?
It really shows you how hard it is to develop ethical AI.
Right.
You can't just, give a car a bunch of rules based on logic and what's right.
Yeah.
We've got to account for how messy humans are,
Yeah, for sure.
how unpredictable we can be, even our instincts.
So you're saying we should program self-driving cars to, like, freeze up in emergencies?
Well, not exactly.
Yeah.
But we got to realize that even in a life or death situation,
Yeah.
a person behind the wheel might not always do the, quote, right thing,
Right.
to maximize safety.
Right. It's complicated.
It is.
We're complicated.
We are, yeah. And that's important as we make machines that can, basically think for themselves
Right. Right.
more and more.
Before we wrap up, I'm just curious about the people who did this experiment.
Okay.
Like, did anyone have any lasting problems from it?
Luckily, no. The researchers were really careful about the ethics of it all. They screened everyone,
Right.
had that trauma counselor there just in case,
Right.
and did those long debriefings afterward.
Yeah.
They even checked in on everybody later to make sure they were okay.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So after diving deep into all of this, what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What should they be, like, thinking about?
I think the main thing is people are way more complex than we think,
Right.
especially when things get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We might think we know how we'd react,
Yeah.
but reality is
Yeah.
different.
Way different.
And that's really important as we, develop more AI.
Right.
It's going to be a big part of our lives.
Right.
So understanding ourselves is more important than ever.
It really makes you wonder,
Yeah.
how you would react in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Switcher, freezer, or problem solver?
Good question.
Even if we never actually face a choice like that, just thinking about it can teach us a lot about ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap for our deep dive into the trolley problem brought to life.
Wow.
Thanks for joining us on this crazy ride through human behavior,
Mm-hmm.
AI, and the future. Until next time, keep those brains working.
Keep asking questions.
And never stop diving deep.
See you next time.